It's always inspiring to see emerging leaders take the stage, and today's speaker is no exception. I have the true pleasure to introduce Sofia Bever, who is an MBA student at Chicago Booth who spent her fellowship with VamosVentures, diving deep into early stage investing. Please join me in welcoming Sofia Bever.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Sofia. I'm here to talk to you about finding our next generation of protagonists. So let me start by introducing myself and apologize for my voice. This past weekend, I did graduate from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business with my MBA. Thank you so much. I am a second-generation immigrant and college graduate and the first in my family to obtain my master's degree, so we certainly were celebrating the past few days. Prior to school, I started my career in growth strategy consulting, but over the last 2 years, I've had the chance to really explore the venture ecosystem through 4 VC internships, as well as serving as an entrepreneur in residence for a seed-stage startup supporting sales and fundraising activities. And what I found is that I really love working with founders at the earliest stages of what they're building. I think what connects a lot of us in this room is that founders are the protagonists that we find ourselves rooting for because we genuinely believe that what they're building is going to change the world for the better. As you can imagine, as an early career investor, a lot of my time was spent screening deals, hundreds of deals over the course of these internships, and making quick decisions around who are the founders that we're interested in taking a first meeting with. In that experience, I found a natural pattern emerging, both through my own workflow as well as the experience of my peers at Booth. A lot of you in the room are probably familiar. There's a really comfortable set of signals that can help make that quick decision around if we want to take that meeting with a founder. I've heard this referred to as the academy or central casting. It's this concept that a founder who is graduated from a top 10 university or has previous experience at a prestigious employer is a really well qualified and a high potential founder. We use this as a proxy for intellectual curiosity, grit, resilience, ability to execute. Venture is still a relatively new industry, but I think that we started to recognize that this is a problem for 2 reasons. One, as Sal mentioned, there is a real lack of financial and social capital access for underrepresented founders. But secondly, this represents a missed opportunity for us to find truly differentiated investments and generate a return for our LPs, which we know is becoming increasingly difficult in today's market. Fortunately, in my conversations with investors, I've increasingly heard this narrative around finding founders that are breaking the mold. However, a lot of this fast-paced, high-volume deal screening process still sits in the hand of analysts or associates early in their career, interns like myself, and increasingly so, AI tools that are further codifying and propagating some of the potential biases that we've used to make these investment decisions in the past. And so I feel like it's really important today in this age to ask the question, when we say founders who break the mold, what does that look like? And is this an opportunity for us to increase access to those underrepresented founders and to find differentiated investments and generate returns for LPs? So like any good investor and consultant, I reached out to a lot of smart people in the ecosystem around me. I spoke to direct investors, fund of funds, platform operators, clinical professors, and community partners to understand 2 questions. One, what are the traits and experiences that are increasingly important for founders to possess to succeed over the next few years? And 2, how are we as an industry evolving the signals and the screening criteria we're using to make decisions around those founders and qualify those criteria? My goal today is not to share with you a set of best practices. As you can imagine, when you speak to so many different investors and operators, there is no consensus around the right way to do the work that we do. However, my goal is to share with you a few discrete insights from my conversations that I hope will inspire or challenge the way that you're operating today. The first theme I want to explore is this idea of prioritizing coachability over social connectivity. Now, both qualities are enduring traits that really set up a founder for success, but in a world where it's increasingly easy for us as investors and value-add investors to be the individuals who are making these connections in the ecosystem to prospective partners or customers for our founders, and in a world where execution velocity is enhanced by technology, we have this opportunity to further. further lean into these really intellectually curious, hungry founders. I want to isolate 2 specific practices that you can use to lean into this concept. So one, self-awareness came up in a lot of my conversations with respect to founder natures. I know that as we're looking through deals, we're really looking for rockstar teams with comprehensive and complementary skill sets. However, it's really important that we make sure we're honest with ourselves, that we're not penalizing founders when they own their weaknesses alongside with their strengths. This makes it easier for us to support them as investors and partners. And one thing I wanted to highlight from our conversation with founders is that this language of coachable, which did come up very frequently in my conversations with investors, can sometimes undermine the credibility that the founder feels in the room. And so we want to transition to using growth mindset language that can help empower founders. The second tactical piece of advice I want to share from my conversations is that I know oftentimes when we invest in founders, we've had a relationship with them 1 or 2 years, and we're constantly receiving updates around progress that they've made in building their startup. What we want to look for is not just traction and really aggressive traction, but sometimes slow and steady traction is okay as long as it's paired with real learnings. We want to stay away from or be wary of vanity metrics like number of customer touch points and really look for, do our founders understand second order effects of their businesses? When their customers adopt their solutions, how do their lives change and what comes next? A second theme I want to touch on is broadening our aperture for grit and resilience. This is a really difficult thing for screen for, but something that we're all looking for. So here, my thought process is, how can we help first-time founders help themselves by sparking the right conversations? My first piece of advice is almost too simple. We often find ourselves asking founders what's their why for building what they're building, but I also want to encourage you to ask them what's something difficult that they've overcome. This helps humanize founders beyond the logos on the page, and it opens the door for underrepresented founders to share a challenge that they've overcome as they've started to build their business. Some of the answers that I've heard in conversations that might be really valuable is hearing about a founder training for a marathon, which is a great proxy and parallel for fundraising. You set a plan, you stick to it, you navigate trials and tribulations, unexpected challenges, and then you follow through on that plan. And the second piece of advice I want to give is don't overlook team dynamics. Yes, every investor or every founder on a team is important, but getting a better sense of the dynamics between the team, is there co-founder trust? Have they demonstrated an ability to weather the storm together and pivot successfully is a great signal and indicator of their ability to grow the startup over time. And so in addition to these discrete insights from conversation, I do want to highlight 2 actions you can start to take tomorrow. So one, I know that we often use a deal scorecard to support an investment decision at the end of a diligence process, but I want to encourage you to bring that earlier as far as your first conversation with a founder. It's a great exercise for you to work with your team to really codify and isolate what are the qualities that you're looking for in founders and what are different examples that we might push our thinking around what that could look like, how it manifests in a deck. And then as you use these ratings over time, you can use them in your retrospective to understand why are we rating certain founders the way that we are. Maybe there's an opportunity to detect for bias. And I have pressure tested this with founders because we always want to make sure we feel like we're humanizing them and not reducing them, to a quantitative metric. But I found that in these conversations, founders really lean into this idea because they want a lot of clarity around how we're making decisions and where they can improve for the next conversation with investors. And of course, we're here for Chicago Blend conversation, so I want to draw attention to the impetus to help shape the future investor talent and really increase diversity in ventures, so that way we can increase diversity in the startups that we're supporting. And thinking about this process, not just here in this room, but as far as going as early as colleges and helping students think about different career paths that they might pursue. And I wanted to give a quick plug to check out the Chicago Blend Talent Network, which is supporting this mission. So parting thoughts, the next generation of protagonists is here. They are deeply embedded in their respective industry and functions. So the logos that we've been looking for in the past are not going to be the same logos we're looking for today. So seeking context is really key. Founders increasingly do not fit into a single sector investment focus, so we want to take care that we're not automatically screening them out because maybe they sit at the intersection of a couple of fields that we're not typically looking at, and we want to be intentional about exploring new areas and leaning on our co-investors to help support us in that process. And lastly, our founders are specialized generalists where they have strong command in their respective fields, but also have great dexterity across their team, across roles. So with that, please, let's keep the conversation going. If you're interested in receiving a more robust copy of my research, or if you want to talk about something else that I touched on in our conversation, I would love to chat. Thanks so much.